Hello, everybody. Good evening. Dan here. How are you? Um, Been a while since we've done one of these live things, but as is customary, whenever we do put out a new video, I like to come on here, a couple days later to talk about it, talk about some of the interesting parts of it, talk about some of the behind-the-scenes stuff, because there's always a lot more that goes on than what we're able to show in a 20-minute video. And so if you haven't seen the video on the Sharon Springs investigation yet, spoiler alert, I guess, but you could easily watch this, then watch it if you haven't seen it. If you want, this will be posted on the page, so you can go watch that video and come back to this anytime you like. For those of you who've been here before, been around for a while, thank you for coming back. We have some new followers, people who are new to the proceedings, welcome. One of the things we love to do is take all of you as close into the investigation and as close into the process as we possibly can. So just want to come here and tell you a couple interesting things about the investigation we just did. That the Sharon Springs Farmhouse is unique for a couple of reasons. First of all, it's residential. And we haven't been doing residential investigations for a while. It's been almost a year. And that's because of COVID. Obviously, we haven't been, nobody's just sort of walking into people's homes and that they don't know right now. So it was unique, but this was a unique circumstance. And the reason we were able to do it is that, as you saw in the video, they're not living there. They're not living, they haven't moved in yet. So they called us and they said they'd heard some stories from previous owners that the home may be home to more than just living beings for the last several years. And before they moved in, they said, hey, let's have you come in and take a look. And when it comes to residential investigations, most of the time we don't find anything. A lot of people think their house is haunted, and a lot of times we have very difficult time finding any evidence. Not in this case, if you saw the video. But this one was also unique because we've done a lot of residential investigations in the past, but you don't see it. We don't produce videos on it because residential investigations are private. We don't share them. This time, the owners of the home were more than happy to let us share all of the evidence and all of the investigation with you folks, and that's awesome when that can happen because it enables us to, bring you guys into everything that's going on to make you part of the proceedings. My one takeaway from the entire experience, it would be how cold it was. It was freezing that night. It wasn't as bad as the night before. The night before, the wind chill was minus 29, I believe. When we were there, it was around 0, which kind of hurt the investigation a little bit because it was an element to the investigation that we were going to do outdoors because this property isn't that far from the Sharon Springs battlefield, which was a battlefield where about 50 American, British, and Native American soldiers lost their lives about 220, 230 years ago. And when it's that cold and there's a foot of snow on the ground, you're just not going to be able to do it. Our thermal camera actually froze. Now, the thermal we use is a FLIR that attaches to an iPhone. The iPhone froze. I could not get any of the buttons to compress. Thankfully, the camera still works. That's an expensive break if it had stayed that way. But it did work. But it was so cold outside that we concentrated almost completely on the inside, which is why you don't see any footage in the video from outside. Before I talk about what's in the video, there was something glaring missing from the video. For those of you who've been with us for a long time, Emily wasn't there. For those of you who are new to the proceedings, Emily is my wife, co-lead investigator, co-founder of Orange County, New York Paranormal. But she had ankle surgery earlier in the month, and she's doing fine, recovering great. But she couldn't go. So this is the first time we've ever done any investigation without Emily. And I missed her. I really did, because not only is it something we love to do together, but she also has an understanding of the equipment. We've investigated together so long, we can sense each other's voices. We can kind of feel what when the other ones, you can just sense when the one person senses something. We have developed a really good rapport. But her replacement did a really good job. Dave is the other gentleman with me, and Dave's her father. We've said since the beginning that we wanted this to be like a family affair. We didn't want to have team members. We wanted to develop a family of people that we loved working with, and we've done that, both outside of our immediate families, but also inside of it. My mother has gone on several investigations. My stepfather's been with us, and now Emily's father did. And Dave did really good, really well, I should say. He was great. He didn't say much in the video, as I've been making fun of him. But it's kind of hard to get a word in sometimes with me around because I tend to do enough talking for two people anyway. But he did a really good job, and we didn't have anybody else in, again, due to COVID. We just wanted to keep it as simple as possible, keep everybody around and away from others. So, but it went really well. And the investigation went really well. And some of the things that we touched on in the video, you know, when you do an investigation and you're reviewing evidence, there's stuff that as you're watching the camera, watching the screen for 20, 25 hours, you're like, please let this be there. Please let this be there. The thing I needed to see was the talking. If you saw the video, I showed a couple of times that I commented on the fact that we just kept hearing people talking. And what I put in the video is only about half of the amount of times that I remember saying it. And Dave even said it a couple of times. What was interesting about it was never in the room we were in. It's kind of like if you're sitting in the room you're sitting in right now watching this and somebody was talking in the furthest room away in your house from you. That's what it sounded like. So it was there, but it was just quiet enough that you could almost fool yourself into thinking that you weren't hearing it, if that makes any sense. When we caught it, and the way we caught it, I jumped right up. I was sitting right in the chair I'm sitting in now, and I just stood at attention when I heard it. Because those two voices that we picked up when we were outside, we weren't even in the house, those still astonish me. That clear male voice with the vocal tone, that clear female voice with vocal tone, seemingly responding. I'm going to go with responding, even though I don't know that for sure. Nobody does. But it just seemed like there was a conversation. It is interesting that it happened outside, and an element of it being outside, if you listen to it in the video, it sounds like a little bit of a reverb or an echo that's happening there. We initially thought that maybe it was a disembodied voice, but none of the camera in the room across from it didn't pick that up. So we're going to go with EVP for now on that one, because if the other camera would have heard it if it was as loud as it had to be for the echo. So that echo, I mean, EVPs have been known to echo. They don't usually, but we've picked up a couple that have. But the talking thing, when we went over the evidence with the owners, that was the one that really got them when they heard that, when they heard the man and the woman talk. That we were doing it over Zoom, and the faces, their faces lit up when they saw that, because that's just not something you expect to hear, whether you're the owner of a home or whether you're somebody investigating a home. The part of the video that I almost left out was the door closing. And that I'm still annoyed by the door closing because the camera didn't get it. And the camera not getting it, somebody asked me in a message on I think it was YouTube, if I thought the door closed, if I thought the camera was disabled, if it was paranormal that the camera went out. No, I don't think it was. It's a brand new camera. It was the first time we'd used it. Maybe it connects differently to the battery pack than it looked like. It did work for about an hour and a half, and then it cut off. I don't know. It doesn't change the fact that we didn't capture it. It also doesn't change the fact that we don't know. I was there. It happened 3 feet away from me. I was taking pictures around the corner into a small room with the Polaroid camera when it happened, and I know I didn't feel the door catch on me. Did I bump it with my heel? Maybe. I jumped up and down and moved around and danced around and in front of that door trying to get it to move, stomped on the floor, did everything possible to try and get it to close on its own, and I couldn't get it to do it. But that does not mean that it's paranormal. I cannot prove it. I cannot debunk it. I have to leave it alone. The reason we put it in the video is that, as you saw, most of the rest of the investigation was us trying to see if it did it. I mean, I put about 3 minutes of footage of us on that door in the video. We were there for a half an hour trying to get that to happen. We asked about that door in the basement, on the first floor, on the second floor. We asked about it everywhere. And We never caught it. The only thing we caught that's even close to I wouldn't call it a confession, is the "You Can't Make Me" EVP, which is just one of my favorite EVPs, not only of that night, but of any night, just because it's it's kind of, I can't decide whether it's a child or if it's an annoyed adult, because I do believe that there is a man, at least one male, one woman whose voice we heard, and the child in there in that house. The child comes from a previous experience where they said that the spirit of a young girl who lived there, a psychic gave an actual name, and it turns out that name turned out to be accurate when they looked at the records. But yeah, the "yeah, right" is definitely a kid. Now, whether "You Can't Make Me" is a little kid taunting me or an adult getting angry with me, I couldn't even begin to tell you. But the EVPs were the real star of the show on this one. We caught some really good ones. "You Can't Make Me," again, like I said, one of my favorites. And "You're a Handful's" a really good one too. And we can't decide if that one was residual, if they're talking to us. It happened, if you'll notice, everything happened when we weren't in the room. I made the joke to a friend of mine that I felt like a narrator in an action like comic series, like "Meanwhile in this room, meanwhile downstairs," because I found I said that about 8 different ways, because everything was happening away from us. But what was interesting was it was happening away from us, which usually points towards something residual. And residual hauntings, they just play on a tape over and over again. They don't pay attention to you, me, anyone. They don't answer your questions, nothing. But these were in other rooms responding to the things we were doing. The camera that picked up the spirit repeating Dave saying it must be the camera, he said that upstairs. The camera downstairs picks up the voice. I'm in the living room. The camera I'm in the kitchen, and the camera in the living room picks up "Hey Dan." We're in the upstairs on the complete other side, and the camera in the master bedroom gets "Come back." So these spirits, they're not in the room with us, but they're talking to us. They're responding to us. My theory is they're shy. And if you think about it, it kind of makes sense, right? I mean, nobody's investigated this house before. And then these 2 guys come in, and they've never seen them before, and they have a bunch of equipment you've never seen before, especially if these spirits are from the era we think they are, which is late 19th century. You know, what would you do? Would you sit in the room with them, or would you go as far away as you possibly can when they ask a question and just yell the answer instead of walk right up to them? That's the best theory I can put together as to how evidence occurring about us was happening as far away from us as possible. We've never actually had that before. I mean, at Grapevine Farms, for example, when David responds to us, we're in David's room. You know, when the children respond to us, we're in the hallway. You know, in any place we investigate. When we at Worcester Inn, when we were talking to Dennis in Dennis's room, Dennis didn't respond to us in a different room. He responded to us in the places that he's purported to be. So it was a very, very interesting development that we had those rooms away, but still responding intelligently to everything that we said. The EVP that stuck out the most in terms of just the voice was the woman. We picked her up 3 times. The first time, you know, saying "I'm tireless." The second time asking if she can help us. And the third time when we were outside saying we still not 100% sure what she was saying. That full vocal tone EVP, that's really interesting. I'm curious to know more about her. And she didn't seem, I mean, you know, it was very helpful. We're moving chairs around, you know, "Can I help you?" "Yeah, that's very nice." It's a nice thought. So, you know, it's, those EVPs were really, really the best part of the evidence that we got, because they were very, very clear and very intelligent. And as always, we come away with more questions than we do answers. And you know, sometimes when we try to get answers, we do things differently. I didn't plan on shutting myself in that room for, you know, 25 minutes or however long it was. I know in the video it's like 3 minutes, but I was in there quite a while. But sometimes you just do that. Sometimes you just get a feeling. You know, something's happening. We know something's going on. You can feel it. It's up there. But you know what? It just isn't responding in a way that we can hear, because the camera's picking up the voices. We can't hear them. So I said, "Nope, Dave, I'm walking in here and shutting the door." And he looked at me like I was a little nuts. And sometimes when you do that, you think you're a little nuts, especially when you listen to the evidence and it's saying things, something like "go away." Like you're like, "Wow, I really, I really sat in there with whatever that is for 25 minutes. Wow, that's interesting." Um, it was interesting. It was a way of filming the evidence that we don't normally do. Like we don't do a lot of the camera just on my face kind of thing. It it looked a lot like the TV shows when we did that. That's not why we did it. We did it because there was no other camera in the room on me that was functioning. The camera above me, even though you can still see the IR light over the top of my head, it wasn't functioning anymore. So so I had to turn the camera. But also you turn the camera because, to be honest, one of the most dominating feelings you have when you do this is that there's something behind you. And so you want to catch it. You want to turn that camera around just to see what's behind you. And and I think when they do it on TV, they're doing it because they're talking to an audience. That's not why I did that. Reason I did that was, if something's going to happen behind me or around me, I want to be able to catch it. And since we did not have a stationary camera in there, the handheld camera was the only one I had to use. And I'm so glad we caught something in there. I'm so glad we caught, not only the ovulus saying David, but the EVP coming through and then it telling me to go away, which isn't the first time or the last time that's ever going to happen. And then the catch, it repeating me saying name toward the end. That was very rewarding, because when you do that kind of thing, you're doing it because you want some kind of evidence to come from it. Thankfully, something did. Um, so all in all, it was a great investigation. We had a really great time. It was nice to be able to bring a residential investigation to you guys, because we don't get to do a lot of that because of, privacy concerns. Heck, even the businesses we investigate, if they decide they don't want us to make a video, we can't make it. Little known fact about all this is that the footage that we shoot in a location actually belongs to the location. It's why, residential stuff has to be private. It's why a place like Hillview Manor charges extra to be able to make a video about it. They actually own everything. Grapevine owns all the footage I shoot there. Worcester owned all the footage I shot there. The businesses are kind enough to let us publish, but with residential, we try to be a lot more private. And in this case, they were more than happy to let us share. And boy, am I happy they did, because it was a good investigation. Which begs the question. What next? Well, the homeowners haven't moved in yet. They're going, and it's one thing to buy a house and hear their spirits in it. It's another thing to have somebody playing you the voices of the spirits that they captured in the house. That is a completely different scenario. And they took it well. They took it well. They took it so well, in fact, they've invited us to come back once they move in and maybe help them communicate a little bit using some of the equipment to follow up, to do an outside component, which will mean we'll probably have to go when it's warmer. But we're also going to have to go when, when COVID starts to, when the numbers start to go down even more considerably. Because to bring that, to get people together is tricky and has been tricky for the last year or so. So, stay tuned. Stay tuned. We will have updates from this this lovely little farmhouse in Sharon Springs, New York. A really nice area. I've very much enjoyed going up there a couple of times recently for this thing, and would love to do more in that area. So that's the story of that investigation. Just a couple things. Some upcoming stuff we have coming. COVID is still complicating investigations. So is Emily's recovery from surgery. So I don't expect any major investigation stuff for another couple of weeks, just as we get clear of that. We are doing an interview on YouTube. I'll put a link. It's going to be the 27th of February. There's a YouTube channel that interviews smaller paranormal groups, which we are. And we've agreed to participate. I believe it'll be an open panel kind of thing. So if you come along and you have questions, I'll put a link up. We do have a YouTube channel, by the way, if you want to see all our videos. If you've just recently followed us, subscribe to our YouTube channel. You'll see every video we've ever made there, and that'll be cool. We're looking forward to that. I love talking about this kind of stuff and meeting new people. So that'll be good. Upcoming investigations. A lot of people have been saying, man, are we going to do events this year? Because, last year kind of screwed everything up. The answer is yes, we are. We have several events planned already for October. I know October seems a long way away, but believe me, it isn't. Very exciting announcement that I will make here for the first time. I won't put it in print yet. Little bonus for those of you who stayed to the end. We will be investigating Hyde Hall in the coming months, and we will also be hosting an event at Hyde Hall. No details yet, no announcements. Don't call them. It's not even on their. It's on their schedule, but there hasn't been anything put together for it yet. But stay tuned. We are really excited about that one. We're going to do some investigating. Obviously, we're our favorite, one of our favorite places ever. We're going to do Grapevine Farms. Our plan is to investigate Grapevine again on the anniversary of David's passing. David Hiltz, the spirit there. We are also planning our usual couple of October events there with Tim and Tracy, and we'll give you more details on that way down the road. But we're excited about doing that too. We always love going back to Grapevine for anything. We've got a couple other investigations that we can't wait to talk to you about, but while we've locked down that we're going to do it, we don't have a date yet, so it's not official. And we're working on, it's weird, it's February, but we're already working on where we're going to do our investigation for next year's Halloween special. That was such a success, and everybody seemed to like that, so we're going to do very similar, like, long investigation video for that, too. So, a lot of exciting stuff going on. Stay tuned right here on Facebook. We're also on Instagram. We're also on YouTube. You can follow us, subscribe to us there, and all that. There, I did my social media shilling, but it it never hurts to have you subscribe in all three places if you can. So, folks, as always, we appreciate you watching the video. The video is getting a great response. I believe it had like 3,600 views. That's fantastic. Thank you guys so much for supporting everything that we do. And we will be in touch. We will talk to you guys later. Stay safe. Stay healthy. Good night.